Now, I don't know his ethnic derivation, and I don't know what jokes he is qualified to tell, but I do know that he has a 20-year career as a very, very distinguished Wall Street portfolio analyst. I know that he has been ahead of the curve on everything with respect to this coronavirus pandemic. He's a practicing physician and an author. One of his books is definitely worth checking out these days, especially if you're looking at some of the messaging coming out of the Democratic Convention this week. That book is called Rules to Stop Radicals. I am pleased to welcome back to the program Dr. Stephen Greer. Dr. Greer, good morning. Thanks for jumping on board with me on the radio today.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Hey, can I ask you a question first? You all there at this station, you do music, don't you?
Well, we will
It's not
after
all-
Labor Day. After Labor Day,
Oh,
Saturday
okay.
nights, 6 to 9 p.m.
Well, I'm a big fan of The Who. I know Simon Townsend, Pete Townsend's brother, and I know Roger and Pete a little bit through their cancer stuff. I hate to say this, but I'd love you to boycott The Who because Simon Townsend tweeted that he hates all Trump followers and he doesn't want them as fans, okay? He doesn't realize most of the Who fans are actually blue-collar Trump followers, okay? That's unacceptable BS.
Well, you know
So,
what? I hear what you're saying, and I think it's so silly. I don't like to call for boycotts. You know why? Because Gretchen Carlson the other day called for people to boycott WABC, the station that I work for, because she doesn't like that we're poised to hire Bill O'Reilly. So I don't want people boycotting me. So I feel like I shouldn't be calling for boycotts of anybody else. But you certainly can.
all right.
All right. Dr. Greer, let me begin with this. There's a bunch of stuff I want to pick your brain on, but let me begin with this. The passing of the president's brother, Robert Trump. We still really don't know exactly what happened that led to his passing at 71 years of age, but you indicated that maybe this didn't have to happen, and maybe he was a victim of, I'm paraphrasing here, but medical malpractice. Tell us what lessons you think we can learn from the passing of Robert Trump.
Right. Well, I know nothing about it other than some article that may or may not have been reliable that he was on blood thinners. So all I can say, let's not make it about him, but in general, blood thinners are one of the most profitable drugs in the drug pharmaceutical sales kind of portfolio, and they're completely unnecessary in most cases. They do more harm than good, even regular aspirin. So if he had gotten a coronary stent, he didn't need the stent in the first place. And the reason you don't want stents is because you then have to be on these life-threatening blood thinners. They make you bleed into the brain and get a stroke or into the gut and bleed to death. So blood thinners are dangerous. They're massively overprescribed, and you can read all about it in that medical advocate book of mine. And that's the point I was taking. But more interesting is George W. Bush. We know more about that. He went for one of these executive physicals where they did a CAT scan of his heart, which is a total to just never get one of those things. And they gave him a stent. He was asymptomatic, didn't need it, so they gave him a stent. So now George W. Bush is on blood thinners, and he complains that he bleeds whenever he shaves. So that's all I was trying to say. There's in American medicine, they want to give you the expensive drugs, not the cheap drugs, and that plays in with hydroxychloroquine. Hydroxychloroquine is a cheap generic drug, and it's a threat to all these fancy new vaccines coming out of Tony Fauci's lab that he wants to take credit for. So,
all right, fair enough. Now, let's talk about where we are with the pandemic. I gave you credit on this program yesterday because you were the first person to say that we had reached herd immunity. Big article in the New York Times yesterday that we may be, they didn't go as far as you did or Rand Paul did, but they said we may be close to herd immunity in places like Sunset Park, places like Borough Park, which is heavily Orthodox Jewish, and places like Corona, Queens, which is heavily Hispanic. As far as you see this pandemic now, you still don't think there's cause for concern at this point?
Oh, that's interesting. I missed that article. So even the New York Times is coming around. It's probably because Governor Cuomo realizes, oops, we can't pay our state employees and we'd better open up the state or else my head is on the chopping block. So let's open up New York here because they're losing so much money finally. But I do believe we've reached herd immunity. The reason is interesting study from an Oxford research, very credible lady, and some MIT and Harvard researchers. Basically, coronavirus is in different forms. It's the common cold in many cases. We have immunity to it already, sort of. This current Wuhan virus, we have immunity to it based on previous common colds. So you only need about 20% of the population to get the Wuhan virus in order to reach herd immunity. Now, herd immunity is the end goal. Hiding from a virus forever with lockdowns will not take care of any sort of pandemic. Herd immunity, either through a vaccine, a man-made vaccine, or just natural course, is the only way to get rid of a virus. And so we want herd immunity. When I hear these stories of many new cases a day, and but they're all asymptomatic, that's perfect. That's called herd immunity. We want that, okay? So I think all over the country we're reaching herd immunity. There's always going to be little hot spots that the propaganda media will hype because they want to stop Trump. But no, I think we're over this.
All right. Well, that's certainly encouraging. We're talking with Dr. Stephen Greer. He's the author of the book, The Medical Advocate. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say the World Health Organization just backed me up on this yesterday. It was in Reuters. They're lamenting, oh, now the virus has changed and most people getting it are under 40 and they're asymptomatic. Well, hello. That means, by definition, it is not a pandemic, okay? If you have a lot of people with a virus and they're asymptomatic, that's not a pandemic.
So
the World Health,
the important thing to look at is not number of new positive cases. It's number of people who are symptomatic.
Yes, and a pandemic and drastic government reaction should be reserved for the last time we saw one, which was the 1918 Spanish flu, where people were dropping dead in 24 hours with purple faces, or Ebola in 2014. Those are real pandemics. This Wuhan thing is a joke. It's not a real pandemic. It's very deadly to sick, elderly, immunocompromised, but so is many other, the common cold,
right.
The common influenza, all that. That just because it's killing sick and vulnerable doesn't mean this is a genuine pandemic.
Yeah.
And so the World Health Organization, the far left, even they admit, everyone's asymptomatic now. Well, what we have now is we all live with viruses. We all have in our bodies viruses that we live with. HPV, herpes, and all that stuff, and you don't know it until you get sick or immunocompromised, and you get shingles from herpes or cytomegalovirus if you have HIV. So this virus, the Wuhan virus, is very much like many other viruses we have in us that do no harm because we have an immune system. So it's not a pandemic.
So if people want to check out some of your essays, some very thought-provoking stuff on there, they can go to GreerJournal.com. That's GREER Journal.com. One of those essays that you have on there is called Never Again, and you have about a number of prescriptions for how we can not do what we just did in the future. You have Reform the CDC, which, I don't think you'll get much argument from anybody on that one. Then you have one suggestion that says outlaw lockdown mandates and mask mandates, and you say that there's zero science behind them. I was a little surprised at the outlaw mask mandate aspect of this, just because, while I know you tend to be libertarian, you were one of the first people, even before Dr. Fauci or the Surgeon General, you were one of the first people to go on radio and say people should be wearing masks. Why then are you suggesting that in the future we don't allow mask mandates?
Well, that's two different things. Should we or should we not wear masks is a decision made between you and your doctor and all that sort of stuff. What I'm talking about is a government edict, decree, fiat that says you must wear a mask. Anytime the government says something like that, one size fits all, it's always wrong. And it's always political by definition because it's coming from a government. And these should be scientific decisions, not political decisions. That's why no state, city mayor, state governor, city mayor should ever have the authority to do this ever again, period. And we have a government agency designed for this. Guess what? It's called the CDC. The CDC was created for this reason, and they have completely dropped the ball. It's corrupt to the core. It's a political agency. It doesn't have a game plan. And the CDC was manipulated by Obama under Ebola in 2014. They screwed up the swine flu under Obama, and now they've screwed up this thing. The CDC needs to be I don't know if it's realistic to abolish it, but purge it, get rid of everybody, make laws that the outside drug industry can't have their claws in the CDC, which they do. Somehow clean up the CDC. It's easier said than done, but it has to be attempted because this cannot happen again. And so we need to stop make it illegal for the politicians like Gretchen
Whitmer. Gretchen Whitmer. Yeah. Gretchen Carlson is the woman trying to get me boycotted. Yes.
Yes, those bumbling idiots should never have the authority that they have now. We got to stop that.
All right. One part of your essay seems a little contradictory because you say we need to get a Supreme Court that's willing to enforce the First Amendment and lockdowns violate the Constitution. Okay, I get that. But then you say we also need to reform media coverage of pandemics. You say it's not protected by the First Amendment to fearmonger. Perhaps coverage in the press would be first cleared by the CDC or some bipartisan congressional committee. That sort of sounds like the opposite of deference to the First Amendment.
No. Well, the First Amendment does not protect everything. There's a lot of speech not protected by the First Amendment. And as you know, I'm in the Supreme Court right now as we speak, and we'll hear on Thursday the outcome. I'm in the Supreme Court on the First Amendment. So you can't cry fire in a theater. I think a lot of people know that. That's what this is. So what I recommend is, I know giving the government any power over the media is a very, very dangerous thing. So it would have to be very specific and only coverage of a pandemic, and that's it. And then it could be a bipartisan panel in Congress or something to vet this, because what we're seeing now is a one-party media, the Democrat Party media, exploiting and fear-mongering and causing tremendous damage. And that's got to stop, because none of these efforts would have been made possible by Gretchen Whitmer and Cuomo killing nursing home patients if the media weren't on their side. So very specifically, surgically restrict coverage of pandemics. That's what I'm proposing.
All right. Something tells me you will not be buying Andrew Cuomo's new book all about the coronavirus pandemic, will you?
I did not even know he had one.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I might. Yeah. Actually, I'd love to read it just to see how funny it is. Sure.
October 13th. It's out.
Steve Scalise, Congressman Scalise, is doing a great job. Everyone should follow him on Twitter. He's really taken the ball and run with it on this Cuomo stuff. And President Trump yesterday tweeted. So it's now getting to the White House level. He said that the 6,000 number of deaths in nursing homes in New York is underinflated. It's actually more like 11,000. So from the White House on down, people are aware of this. So maybe we'll get a U.S. attorney to do something.
Well, we'll see. We'll have to see where it goes. Dr. Greer, it's always a treat talking to you. Thank you.